Hello everyone and welcome back to the Budget Gourmet. If you're new here, my name is Dan and I try to help you and your family create delicious meals all while saving a little bit of cash. It's the new year. Happy 2025. It's also February. It's also Valentine's Day. It's the middle of February. That's how long it's been since I posted a video. I just took a little bit of a hiatus, just enjoying the holidays, doing all this stuff. That being said, aside, last year, I'm so grateful for, I'm humbled by it. I'm happy to announce that we have hit 500 subscribers. Not just 500, but we have surpassed that to hit 686 subscribers. That's right, 686 of you between statistically the ages of 25 to 70 are watching this, and I can't thank you guys enough for everything that you are continuing to do and just supporting this channel and continuing to watch. And in the spirit of Valentine's Day, let me just say that I love you. That was weird. I'm just looking forward to creating more and more content, building an even bigger and greater community, and being able to just continuing to share recipes and joy and just having a fun time on the Budget Gourmet. And most importantly, saving you a little bit of cash. So that's my little thank you from last year and moving into the new year. It is Valentine's Day. It is a day where we show each and every person that we love them, especially the special people in our lives, that we love them. And I thought, what better way to start the new year off than with a Valentine's Day feast. Valentine's Day is one of those days where, let's be honest, it's always great to be able to spoil the one that you love and be able to take them out to a fancy restaurant, do these different things. But how much more would it mean to them if they knew that you made something for them, especially for them, and doing it for cheap? That is what we are trying to do today. I will have the price listed below of what I spent on this feast. But today we are going to be making shrimp risotto. I've never had risotto before in my life, so this should be something interesting. Steak with chimichurri. I've made this before, but you can't go wrong with steak. Immediately when I think of fancy, maybe it's just from watching Gordon Ramsay a lot growing up, but it has always been like steak and risotto and some sort of seafood. And then finally, we are doing a dish from my homeland, my heritage, and we are going to be making Cambodian doughnuts. The name escapes me right now. What is it called, babe? The Cambodian doughnuts? What is it called? Look it up real quick. Nom Kong? Was that what you said? Nom Kong. Cambodian donuts. It's crispy on the outside, chewy on the inside, and we're just this beautiful glaze with some sesame. It's gonna be awesome. You know what the most important ingredient in all cooking is, don't you? It's love. Thank you guys so much for watching. Appreciate all of your support. A happy Valentine's Day to you and yours, and let's just get right into the video. Alright, let's get started. In my mixing bowl, I'm going to pour in 16 ounces of sweet rice flour, the entire thing. I'm going to be adding about 2 tablespoons of sugar. This calls for palm sugar, but I just use regular sugar for this one, and a half a teaspoon or a big pinch of salt. After everything is mixed well, I'm going to be adding 1 can of full-fat coconut milk. After all of our ingredients have been added, we're going to mix this well until it starts forming a dough, and here we're looking for a Play-Doh-like consistency, at least according to the recipe. Afterwards, cover with a damp cloth and let sit for 1 hour. After sitting for an hour, you're okay to start forming your donuts. You can make whatever shape you want. I decided to go with a classic donut shape, but hearts could be nice. That could show them you love them just a little bit more. After our donuts have been formed, I'm going to fill a large pot with some oil, about a quarter of the way up, and I'm going to let that come up to temp to about 325 degrees. And slowly and gently adding in our donuts, being very careful not to burn my hands. And I'm also letting those donuts have a little bit of space. You don't want it too crowded in the oil because then it won't really fry. Fun fact, my original donuts were too big. I did a test batch and I actually had to cut the size by about half. They are a lot smaller, but they cooked a lot better, and I guess they were just too big and too dense, so it was cooked on the outside, but not necessarily cooked on the inside. I let these donuts fry for about 10 to 12 minutes until they reached a beautiful golden brown.
and they started to float. You can see just a little bits of bubbles popping up over the donuts, but don't those look divine? You just want to cook them until they're nice and golden brown. After removing them from the oil, we're going to focus on our glaze. This is where I used the palm sugar. I added some palm sugar into my pot on a low heat and letting the sugar dissolve in some water. All we're looking here is to form a nice glaze. You'll see the sugar start to change color, and after it has thickened up a little bit, you add your sesame seeds. And then you just dunk your donuts in, and this is the final product. I decided to drizzle the remainder of our glaze on there, and doesn't that look delicious? Let me tell you something, this is the first time I'm making these, and boy oh boy were they a little bit dense. These were a little bit tough, but they did have a nice mochi-like texture on the inside. But with this being my first time making them, maybe that's how they're supposed to be. But I guess I would have preferred them a little bit lighter and fluffier. These weren't too sweet. I'd probably say a 7 out of 10. Pretty good. Alright, so moving on to our next dish, we are going to start our shrimp risotto. This, to me at least, felt like the longest dish in this whole feast thing. I'm going to start out by defrosting some jumbo shrimp I got from Aldi, just letting them sit in some cold water until they're all defrosted and ready to go. Next, we're going to prep some veg for our shrimp stock. Starting out by creating a little bit of a mirepoix here. Just chopping up, rough chopping, might I add, some celery, some carrots, and a little bit of onion. This is just going to add a lot of flavor to our stock. Half of the onion I'm going to put into our stock, and the other half of the onion I'm going to fine dice and put in our risotto. Once our shrimp have been defrosted, I'm just going to begin separating the shell from the meat, and thankfully all of the shrimp at Aldi, but you just want to double check, has been deveined. Next, in my little stock pot here, and by little I mean little, I'm going to be adding a little bit of olive oil along with our shells. And all I'm looking to do here is to just extract some flavor from our shells here, letting them get a bit of color. Just like the shrimp meat, you're going to notice that they start changing color as well. And all this is doing is just continuing to add more flavor to our stock. Once our shrimp shells are done cooking, we're going to be adding our vegetables to the pot as well, along with our seasonings. Going pretty basic here on the seasonings, just a couple big pinches of salt and some pepper, and then I'm just going to let everything harmonize and start to mesh together before adding my water, adding enough water to cover all of my vegetables and my shrimp, and then I'm just going to let that simmer for about 30 to 45 minutes. After it's done cooking, we're going to pass our stock through our strainer here and get all of our liquid into a separate bowl. And after you have something like I do resembling dirty bath water, you should be good to go. And now it's time to cook our risotto. In a large pot, I'm adding some butter. I'm going to melt that down, and then we're going to be adding our diced onions from earlier. All we're looking to do here is to just let them cook a little bit, just let them sweat in the pot. Nothing too crazy. After a few minutes on medium-low heat, we're going to be adding our chopped garlic as well. Again, we're not looking for a hard cook on the garlic, we're just wanting the garlic to become fragrant. After the onions and garlic are cooked, we're going to be adding some white wine to deglaze the pan and add a little bit of acidity. And then we're going to be adding our white rice. I added about 1.5 cups of white rice. Now traditionally you would be using arborio rice, which is a short grain rice and has a high starch content, so it makes the risotto really creamy, but I just used whatever I had on hand and it still turned out okay. Now moving on to the actual cooking process for the risotto. As you can see, I'm adding a ladle full of stock to my pot. The process is this: you add a ladle full of stock at a time. And between each ladleful of stock, you're going to want that rice to absorb all of the previous liquid. Once all of the previous liquid is absorbed, then you add another ladleful, and you repeat this process over and over until it's cooked through. According to the recipe, this process takes anywhere from 25 to 30 minutes. So while that's going on, we're going to prep our shrimp. First by drying all of our shrimp, and then seasoning it very generously. Just adding a pinch of salt and some black pepper, and then the secret ingredient, I'm just adding a little bit of Old Bay. Next, I'm going to preheat my pan on a high heat before adding a little drizzle of olive oil and making sure my shrimp are all in a single layer while cooking. Shrimp cook really fast and it's really easy to overcook them. So what I like to do is just look out for the colors. Once they start changing, I like to flip them. and I don't think I cooked these shrimp for very long, maybe 3.5 to 4 minutes at most. I didn't want them to become rubber bullets. Once the color had all around changed, then I knew that they were done. Our risotto is nearly finished and completed. At the very end, once you start seeing it all come together and start to get creamy, I'm going to be adding some Parmesan cheese, freshly grated. This is going to add a nice bit of saltiness, a little bit of nuttiness, and then I'm also going to be adding a little bit of black pepper. Seasoned to taste, obviously. I found out you'll know when your risotto is done when the rice is al dente and it maintains a porridge-like texture. This was absolutely amazing. I have definitely been missing out, and even though it took a while to do, it was definitely worth it. 10 out of 10, I'm definitely making this again. And now it's time for the last component of our Valentine's Day feast, our steak and chimichurri. As you can see, the price is there. Pretty mind-blowing for steaks of this caliber. These are chuck eye steaks, and even though they're cheap, they are full of flavor, known as the poor man's ribeye. I'm letting my steaks come up to room temp. This gives us the perfect opportunity to make our chimichurri. I'm going to start out by rough chopping a whole lot of parsley, making sure it is chopped finely, transferring my parsley to a bowl, and then I'm going to be adding some minced garlic. Nothing too crazy here. Add as much garlic as you want or as little as you want. I probably added about 3 to 4 cloves because I love garlic. After transferring the garlic to the bowl as well, this is where we start adding our seasonings. Pretty simple when it comes to seasonings. I'm just adding some black pepper and a little bit of salt. I know there are other people that like to add a little bit of red pepper flakes, but I don't really like that much spice. All you're going to do to finish it off is add a lot of olive oil, make sure it's good quality, and a little bit of red wine vinegar. Add as little or as much as you want, depending on your taste. And that's really it when it comes to the chimichurri. After our steaks have come up to room temperature, I'm going to season them very, very generously with salt and pepper on both sides and really packing all of it down so we can get a nice crust on our steaks. I'm going to allow my pan to be on a high heat here, and after it has been preheated, I'm going to add a little bit of oil to our pan and just drop the steaks right down in and pushing down on them slightly so that oil just starts to permeate all of our steak so we can start to develop a really nice crust. I like to flip the steaks pretty frequently, maybe every minute and a half to a minute. This way it ensures even cooking time and one side doesn't get overcooked while the other is still raw. As you can see, we're starting to develop some beautiful color. After it has been seared on both sides, I'm lowering the heat, and then I'm going to add a lot of butter to our pan. This is going to add a beautiful flavor and also ensure even more browning, as you can see. You can cook your steak to whatever temperature you like. These steaks were a little bit thicker, so I think I probably cooked them for anywhere to around 11 to 12 minutes, and they turned out to me to be, I believe, a medium. I prefer medium steaks. I don't like things super bloody or raw. I think medium is the perfect temperature for me. After letting our steaks rest for a while, all that's left to do is to just slice them up, and it turned out beautifully. This was my favorite dish in our Valentine's feast. After our steak has been chopped up, now it's time to just add that chimichurri, and might I tell you that this was absolutely delicious, but you can't go wrong with steak and chimichurri. And that is the final dish. I just want to thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed our little Valentine's Day feast preparation. I hope you all have a wonderful Valentine's Day, and I will see you next week with a new video. Goodbye.